In 1920, when people of the West were just about being too extra, paving the roads for exclusivity and introducing more diversity in fashion and lifestyle, the story was slightly different in the East. Emerging characters with different attitudes are always under scrutiny and not very much welcomed. Some people may feel more excited, but others may easily feel triggered or even threatened. At that time, a girl was born to a political family in China, one of the wealthiest families in the East, which gave her the privilege and comfort that everyone wished for. But the pressure she faced since her childhood doubled with her strange talents, desires, and intelligence that were very unusual to her people. People know her as Madame Wellington Koo, a famous fashion icon with many admirers in all around the world. The truth is, she lived a full life, a diverse background with an adventurous story, much more purposeful than the luster and glam of her own time, shaped her into one of the prominent figures of the 40s. And that is a pity to know nothing about her. Her name is Oei Hui-lan, and we are going to dive into her story. From a very young age, she started revealing attitudes that were strange in her family. She was labeled as bold and daring, unlike many of her family members, or it's better to say females in her country. As you probably know, these qualities were not appreciated that much back then. However, we can say that it was her mother who desired to raise her kids differently. And honestly, you cannot expect less when it was her mother hung an 80-carat diamond around her neck when she was just a baby. She was born in 1889 in now Indonesia. Her father was a Chinese-Indonesian tycoon and the son of the founder of Kyungwan, a multinational trading company. Westerns call him the Rockefeller of China, and he truly was the wealthiest man in Java. And her mother was one of the descendants of a high-ranking government official in Indonesia. She and her sister, Hui-Ian, were daughters of his father's first wife. So among 40 other children, they were quite privileged to be educated at his home and by European tutors to learn social etiquette from their governesses. So like many modern rich girls during that time, she soon learned to speak English and French fluently, with a satisfying level of Mandarin and Dutch. And these languages became her tool to develop her desire to explore the world outside the home. The way they were growing up sparked Oei's sister's interest in art. While studying music in recital in Singapore, they became headliners in a local newspaper. The article enthusiastically called her the young Chinese girl singing in French to English audience, like she was born to be a star from the very young age. The headline said her European quality performance made them think the East is not really that far from the West. Oei Hui-lan, or Angel, had qualities that universally were praised. The fact that she performed at school as Sibyl from Charles Gounod's operas Faust, and Georges Bizet's Carmen in fluent French for fundraising was something more than art, and made the Javanese pioneering women's rights activist R.A. Cartini applauded her for her activities. And darling, no one guessed her shining moments were about to blossom in a whole new chapter. 2 years later, the lovely girl of Java married a British consular agent, Beauchamp Caulfield de Stoker. The marriage seemed like a business marriage because Angel's father benefited from this English relationship. They moved to London, and everything certainly was about to change, for both good and evil. His father bought them the Greylands apartment, her new home where she was no longer Angel. She was the one and only Countess Hoy Stoker, the star of the London social circles. People loved the Lady Stoker and admired her fashion taste. Guests enjoyed her companionship, a friend who could handle conversations about art and culture in 5 different languages. At one of the famous costume parties in the Ritz, she appeared so elegantly that made people talk about her avant-garde fashion sense in all of London. In fact, she had a versatile closet. Her style ranged in different designs and brands, from a combination of full Turkish trousers made of green chiffon, a gold lame bodice, and a yellow jacket to a novel use of accessories like tucking gold and green flowers in her hair and wearing a triple strand of pearls, while drawing a fine line between her origins and the new deliberated world. She had the luxury of exploring London's high society. She was enjoying her moments dancing at the parties while showing off her fashion style. However, many believed that her social ambitions and personality were the reasons why the couple finally decided on a separation. It was their different personality and ideas that got their relationship to an upsetting situation. He separated his bedroom to keep a distance and did not let her join him while he was at Devonport. So, in the world where newspapers were responsible for scattering both the news and the rumors, the gazettes talk about them a lot, and it is no surprise that the Javanese, the 1918 bestseller novel, depicted the trouble of the marriage of an American who was unable to communicate decently to his Chinese bride, filed for divorce in 1920 after 10 years of marriage, and moved to their townhouse in Mayfair, London to live with her mother and sister. But she continued her lavish lifestyle and socializing till a summer night in 1920 when she met Wellington Koo in Paris. Koo was different, at least on the paper, but for her enthusiasm it was a good difference. Sitting in official boxes of the opera reserved for the government officials was the privilege that his father's wealth could never give her. She was impressed by his diplomatic limousine and chauffeur, as well as his graduate degree from Columbia. Both had children. She had Lionel, her son, and he had 2 sons from his 2 marriages. So, as their parents, her sister, and all of their friends predicted and tried so hard to set these 2 up, the couple announced their engagement after 2 months of dating during a ball for the Chinese Republic anniversary. Her bridal dress was an utter epitome of her high fashion sense, an antique veil and an ivory gown by Clouseau. She had the liberty to express herself in every city they visited together, and of course under the support of his diplomat husband. While she was the subject of many photographers of her time, including Bertram Park and Walter Barnett, one of her most iconic and historical photographs was taken when she wore Charles Frederick Worth and a Cartier diamond tiara for a state ball at Buckingham Palace. The cream brocaded velvet gown with trails of flame-colored tulle delicately fitted her body. An ostrich feather waterfall fan and a fur wrap on her left arm were just examples of the undeniable luxury accessories of the Gilded Era. Her portrait was later painted by Federico Bertrand Masses, Edmund Dulac, Leon Underwood, Olive Snell, Olive Pell, and Charles Tarbes, and yes, she was too inspiring. At the beginning of her journey to Europe, she expressed a high talent in styling with extravagant Western standards and fashion. Her passion was recognized by Vogue, so she was listed as the best-dressed woman for 3 decades, honoring her with the title Chinese Citizen of the World and calling her international beauty. But all these names and praises were not appreciated that much in China. She soon realized that as a Chinese diplomat's wife, she lacked a Chinese identity, and it made her become restless. They left Geneva for Beijing. The new family had bigger callings. In the middle of the political chaos in China, he was getting ready for his new roles as the foreign minister and finance minister of the Republic of China. So was she. And this is what I like about her so much. Instead of fighting back, she used all her assets to gain more respect and establish a powerful position. Soon after a short while of learning diplomatic protocols, she became an expert and one-of-a-kind society hostess. It made Koo appreciated her wife's support and often relied on her. She could easily manage to greet politicians and socialize with royal members, opt for the proper attire and curtsying with ease. Equally, her husband's position doubled the power of hostess of Paris and London. Her social circle extended to Sir Victor Sassoon and Wallis Simpson. On the other side of the world, Hui-Ian had her way in the Chinese social circles. However, life in the middle-class era of Shanghai was boring to her opulent, meticulous taste. She did not like the way people were influenced by Western culture and how they recklessly imitated Western looks and lifestyles rather than embracing their Chinese culture. That personality shift was a bit surprising, isn't it? That was a major identity shift in her ideology, or maybe the Chinese patriotism was silently always there, who knows? But there was a very contrary situation in Beijing. She admired the celebration of Chinese antiques such as jade, blue and white porcelain, and the aesthetics that for her were resemblance to Paris. People thought she was fond of Western standards, but she had an undeniable bond with her roots. In fact, it was the beauty she admired the most, whether in Beijing, Paris, or in any place in the world that preserved its art and culture. Her refined taste was unique to her. Anyone could simply recognize her by traditional Chinese dress wearing with jade necklaces in a fashionable modern way. She used every chance to represent China on the international stage, from decorating Chinese embassies with Chinese antiques to making revolutionary changes in wearing cheongsam, one of the traditional Chinese female dresses. The way she slashed hers to the knee with lace pantalettes that were visible to ankle gave it a modern and fashionable look. She was aware of her new position and had the skills and opportunities to play the diplomatic wife's role. When they came to Beijing, she purchased a large palace, a very, very large palace with 200 rooms, with his father's money. And for renovation, she received another support of around $150,000. Her 50 servants, the only Rolls Royce in Beijing, and many entertainments were ready to make her the real Madame Wellington Koo, socializing with international guests such as the Crown Prince and Princess of Sweden. Her life had changed dramatically from flapper chic to the Madame, as French was the official language of diplomacy. She was nothing like other diplomatic wives, preferring to stay aside. She described her role as a career, trying to represent China as a political actor in international diplomacy. As they said, she used her intelligence, looks, and fortune to advance China and simply connect the East to the West. The madam wore Chinese dresses embroidered with dragons and hosted her guests by smartly introducing two traditional Chinese dishes to their European menu and serving the food in Chinese golden dishes that her mother gave them. When Koo became the president of the Republic of China for a short while, Hui-Ian became the first lady of China for a very brief period. It opened up opportunities that she could never imagine. She was invited to Elsie de Wolf's party in Versailles, sitting next to Coco Chanel and Elsa Schiaparelli, that someone considered it Europe's last swan song before the Second World War. After living in Europe and China for years, she moved to New York City to persuade the United States to support China's war effort in Asia. Even though the relationship was in a bad situation, she still was devoted to her Chinese patriotism far beyond her marriage. However, the couple finally divorced in 1958 after 3 years of marriage. Without being officially employed by the Chinese government, she facilitated Chinese diplomacy by cultivating personal relationships while representing Chinese women on the international stage. This is the end. Hui-Ian contributed in ways that have not been widely acknowledged, and she was neglected, mainly because of the conventions of diplomatic history, which focuses on diplomats rather than people like her who did so much for her country. Was she just too much, or she was just enjoying her life? Who knows?